Sarah stood silently by the window of baby Max's bedroom. It was late at night, but her eyes remained fixed on Sam, the loyal dog standing guard in front of the crib. Sam was no longer the gentle dog she was used to. Its eyes glowed brightly in the darkness, and a low growl rumbled from its throat like a warning. She sighed softly, brushing her messy hair back in fatigue. "Sam, what's wrong? You're making me so worried." Sarah spoke gently, but Sam didn't take its eyes off the window, where the thick darkness seemed to be hiding something. Sam was not just a dog, but also Sarah's only companion when she adopted Max ever since she lost her parents. Sarah had grown accustomed to facing life alone. But since Max came into her life, everything changed. Max was her lifeline, her joy, her motivation to keep fighting each day. Sam, with its loyal instincts and kind heart, was the tireless protector of the mother and child. "Maybe I'm just overthinking," Sarah told herself, but her heart couldn't settle. Deep inside, she always felt that Sam's actions weren't meaningless. A knock on the door snapped her out of her thoughts. It was Ted, the grumpy neighbor. "Miss Sarah, if your dog doesn't keep quiet, I'll call the police," he said harshly, his sharp gaze making her falter. "Ted, I'm sorry," but Sarah began to explain, but the words caught in her throat. She felt isolated, pressured from all sides. She turned back into the house, hugging Max, who was sound asleep, and wondered, "What's happening that I don't know about?" Sam turned to look at Sarah, its eyes seemingly saying, "I won't let anything happen to Max and you." Sarah sat on the worn-out chair next to Max's crib, the dim light from the night lamp casting a tired glow on her face. Max slept soundly, his breath steady, but Sarah's heart felt heavy. Sam stood by the window, his body tense, sharp ears pointed toward the darkness outside. A soft yet determined growl escaped him repeatedly. "Sam, what are you sensing?" she whispered, her eyes filled with worry as she looked at the dog. Sarah wanted to believe this was just baseless anxiety, but she knew Sam wasn't the kind of dog to be easily agitated. Ever since she rescued him from the wildlife center, Sam had always been the embodiment of calmness and loyalty. But now, he wasn't acting like himself. She recalled the early days of bringing Max home. Sam had immediately bonded with the baby, lying by the crib like a silent guardian. Sarah used to feel reassured seeing Sam near Max. But now, Sam's change in behavior left her uneasy. "Maybe I'm just too tired," Sarah tried to convince herself, but deep down, her worry didn't subside. A faint noise outside pulled Sarah out of her thoughts. She started, her heart pounding. It sounded like a branch snapping or footsteps. She glanced at Sam. This time, he wasn't just growling. Sam stood upright, muscles taut, his eyes glowing brightly in the darkness. He stared intently at the window, as if determined to protect his entire world. Sarah stepped closer to the window and pulled the curtain aside. There was nothing but the shadows of trees swaying in the wind. "It can't be. Is someone out there?" she wondered, a chill running down her spine. She turned back to face Sam. "What are you sensing that I can't see?" Her voice trembled, not just from fear, but also from a growing sense of helplessness. At that moment, the sound of knocking echoed again. "Ted," Sarah murmured. She felt annoyed at the intrusion of her unpleasant neighbor. Opening the door, she found Ted standing there, his face flushed. "Sarah, I can't take it anymore. Your dog has been making noise all night. If you don't deal with it, I'll report it to the authorities." "Mr. Ted, I'm so sorry." But Sam never acts without a reason. "Maybe," Sarah hesitated, struggling to explain, but Ted's sharp gaze cut her off. "Listen carefully. This house, it's had problems before. The previous owner was attacked by an intruder right inside. You should be more cautious than letting your dog ruin my sleep." Ted turned and walked away, leaving Sarah frozen in shock. Attacked? Why have I never heard about this? She closed the door, her mind swirling. If what Ted said was true, could Sam be sensing something? Or was this all just a coincidence? She looked at Sam, now back by Max's crib, his eyes never straying from the darkness beyond the window. "If you sense danger, I'll trust you," Sarah said softly, tears welling up. She held Max tightly, her heart in turmoil. But one thing was clearer than ever. she couldn't ignore Sam. Sam had never let her down, and this time, she knew the dog was trying to tell her something more important than any ordinary warning. Sarah woke up in the middle of the night to the fierce barking of Sam. Her heart pounded as she realized something was wrong. She hurriedly turned on the bedroom light and rushed to Max's crib. The crib had been moved from its position. It was near the window, and the curtains were still swaying as if someone had just touched them. "No way," Sarah whispered, clutching Max, who was still sound asleep, with trembling hands. She looked at Sam, standing guard in front of the window, his body tense and growling incessantly. Sam's eyes were full of vigilance, as if he were trying to protect them from an invisible threat. Sarah gasped for breath, trying to calm herself. She walked over to pull the curtains aside, but beyond the thick darkness, she saw nothing but tree branches swaying in the wind. However, the pale moonlight shining down on the garden revealed a large footprint on the damp soil. It was right beneath the window. "Sam, someone was here," Sarah whispered, her unease growing. She collapsed next to Sam, stroking his soft fur. "Thank you, Sam. You saved Max." Her voice broke and tears welled up in her eyes. She called the police immediately. While waiting for them to arrive, Sarah walked around the house to check. She discovered a shovel abandoned by the fence. Her hands trembled as she picked it up, her heart heavy with the thought that someone had actually attempted to break into her home. Sam followed her every step, ears perked up, and eyes never leaving the window. "You know something I can't see, don't you?" Sarah murmured, as if confiding in him. Sam responded only with a determined look, as if to say, "Trust me, danger is still out there." The police arrived 15 minutes later. 2 officers examined the traces around the house. "There are signs of an intruder here," one of them said, pointing to the footprints and the shovel. "But nothing was stolen. It seems they were either trying to scare you or scouting the area." Sarah held Max tightly in her arms, overwhelmed by a sense of helplessness. "I don't understand. Why would they do this? I have nothing to lose," she trailed off, her gaze shifting to Sam. "Your dog did a good job," the second officer said, bending down to pat Sam's head. "If it weren't for him, who knows what might have happened?" Sarah nodded, filled with gratitude. Sam had done the right thing, but it didn't ease the anxiety gnawing at her. If someone truly had their sights on her and Max, could this just be the beginning? When the police left, Sarah confronted her fears. She pulled Max's crib in her room and locked the door securely. Sam lay right beside her, his eyes still fixed on the door. Before turning off the light, Sarah whispered, "You mean everything to me and Max. Without you, I don't know what I would do." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She thought about her life, the challenges she had overcome, and now this unnamed threat. She also thought about Sam, a dog she had once rescued, but who now was the one protecting her and Max. Outside the window, darkness still loomed. But inside, Sam was like a guiding light, giving Sarah a glimmer of hope in a long, anxiety-filled night. The next morning, pale sunlight streamed through the window, but an uneasy feeling continued to cling to Sarah. She wearily stroked Max, who was nursing, while Sam lay at the foot of the chair, his eyes fixed on the front door. The dog's behavior now was not just protective, but seemed more like guarding against an unseen threat. "We can't keep going like this," Sarah thought to herself. She picked up her phone and called a security camera installation center. "I need a surveillance system immediately. Today, if possible." Her voice was firm, but strained with tension. Ted appeared as usual, his face filled with irritation. "Miss Sarah, I don't know what you're doing, but your dog needs to quiet down. Otherwise, don't blame me." His eyes were filled with annoyance and sarcasm. Standing at the door, Sarah bit her lip to hold back her anger. "Mr. Ted, I've apologized many times, but Sam doesn't bark for no reason. Something is wrong." "Wrong? Or are you just imagining things?" Ted interrupted. "I suggest you check yourself instead of trusting that stupid dog." He turned and walked away, leaving Sarah with a heavy heart. She went back inside, hugged Sam, and whispered, "You're not stupid, Sam. I know you're trying to protect me and Max." Tears fell down her cheeks, but she quickly wiped them away. "I can't be weak. Not now." That afternoon, the camera system was installed. Sarah checked every angle, especially focusing on the window in Max's room and the backyard area. She wanted to ensure nothing escaped her watchful eyes. That evening, when Max was asleep, Sam began showing signs of unease. The dog left his usual spot beside the crib, circling the window and then turning toward the front door. Sarah watched him, feeling as if Sam was trying to communicate something. "What do you hear, Sam?" she whispered, her heart pounding. Suddenly, her phone sounded an alert from the camera system. Sarah quickly opened the screen. In the backyard footage, she saw a shadowy figure moving stealthily. The person wore a hood and carried something resembling a long metal bar. Panic-stricken, Sarah immediately called the police. While waiting, she locked all the doors, placed Max in the crib in her room, and held Sam close. She could feel the dog's body tense, his eyes shining brightly, ready to defend. "Sam, I'm so scared," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. She knew she had to stay strong for Max, but the feelings of loneliness and danger nearly overwhelmed her. Sam whined softly and licked her hand, as if to comfort her. She looked at him, feeling the steadfastness and unwavering loyalty radiating from him. "I trust you. You're my only hope." The police arrived 10 minutes later, but the figure had vanished. They found a crowbar discarded near the fence. It seemed the intruder had tried to break the lock, but had been scared off by Sam's barking. An officer looked at Sam and smiled. "This dog just saved your entire family. Without him, things could have been much worse." Sarah hugged Sam tightly, her heart filled with gratitude. But deep down, she knew the danger wasn't over. The stranger would surely return. That night, Sarah sat leaning against the bed frame, her eyes glued to the phone screen, where live footage from the security camera was displayed. Sam lay beside her, his body tense, eyes constantly darting toward the front door. The atmosphere in the house was heavy, filled with a tension ready to explode. Sarah glanced at Max, sleeping soundly in his crib. Each gentle breath of her son was a reminder that she had to be strong, that all fears had to be pushed aside. But deep down, she couldn't stop thinking about the image of the mysterious figure that appeared on the camera the night before. A sudden noise from the backyard jolted Sarah out of her thoughts. Sam sprang up and dashed to the door with a loud bark. Startled, Sarah looked down at her phone. The camera showed a blurry figure approaching the back door, holding something glinting faintly in the dim light. "No way!" Sarah gasped, her heart pounding. She quickly picked up her phone to call the police, but her hands trembled so much that it was hard to dial. Please come quickly," she whispered. Sam growled, his fur standing on end, positioning himself in front of the back door. Sarah knelt down, placing her hand on his back, feeling the tension in his body. "Sam, you have to help me. I don't know what I'd do without you." A knock came at the door. "Sarah, open the door now," Ted's voice echoed, full of anger. Sarah froze. She peeked through the crack in the door and saw Ted standing there, his face flushed, holding an iron rod. "Ted? What are you doing here?" she stammered, trying to stay calm. Ted slammed the door hard, his eyes filled with hatred. "Who do you think you are, ignoring me? You and your stupid dog. I'll show you the consequences of messing with me. You're crazy. You have no right to be here." Sarah screamed, her voice trembling with fear. Sam didn't wait. He lunged toward the door, barking furiously, as if challenging the intruder outside. Sarah grabbed Max from his crib, holding him tightly as she retreated into a corner, her eyes filled with desperation, but also a fierce determination to protect her family. The police arrived faster than she expected. When they got there, Ted was apprehended on the spot. He screamed and struggled but couldn't escape the grasp of the two officers. "You'll regret this, Sarah. You don't know who you're dealing with," he yelled as he was taken away. Sarah stood there, holding Max in her arms, her eyes following Ted as he disappeared into the darkness. A sense of relief washed over her, but it didn't completely overshadow her fear. One of the officers approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You and your child are safe now. We'll continue monitoring the situation. But I have to say this. Your dog saved your family. He's extraordinary." Sarah looked down at Sam, who who was now standing beside her, his eyes still fixed on the door, as if to ensure no danger remained. "You'll always be my hero, Sam," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. That night, in her bedroom, Sarah couldn't sleep. She thought about Ted, his words, and realized that danger doesn't only come from strangers, but can also come from those she once thought she knew well. But what moved her the most was Sam's protection. A dog once abandoned, once unloved, had now become a hero, a beacon of light in the darkness. Sarah stroked Sam's soft fur as he lay beside the bed, his ears still perked, his eyes still half open, as if ready to keep watch. She made a silent vow. "I'll protect you, just as you've protected me and Max." The next morning, as pale sunlight streamed through the window, Sarah walked into the kitchen with dark circles under her eyes from a sleepless night. Max was safely placed in the nearby baby chair, while Sam lay next to it, his watchful eyes fixed on the window. Today, Sarah decided to get to the bottom of the truth. She called a home inspection company, requesting them to come immediately to check everything. After what happened last night, Sarah didn't want to leave any hidden risks in the house. Sam, with his instincts, had clearly detected something she hadn't noticed. When the inspector arrived, Sam grew more tense. The dog followed the man's every step as he began inspecting the house. The inspector used various measuring devices, checking the walls, windows, and even the foundation. Sarah stood nearby, her anxiety growing with each passing moment. "This house is quite old," the inspector said in a thoughtful tone. "There might be some structural issues, but we need to investigate further." Unexpectedly, he stopped at the back corner of the house. "Miss Sarah, there's something wrong here," he said, pressing his hand against the wall. "It feels like there's an empty or unstable space inside." Sam immediately darted to the corner, growling, his eyes lighting up. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Empty? What do you mean?" The inspector continued to use a moisture meter. His expression became more serious. "There are signs of water seeping into the wall from the outside." And he removed a small wooden panel at the base of the wall, and a musty odor wafted out. "It seems there's water buildup and termite infestation here. This is very dangerous. If not repaired promptly, this wall could collapse." Sarah felt dizzy. Termites? Water damage? I had no idea. She placed her hand on her forehead, feeling overwhelmed and hopeless. The inspector shook his head. Water from a broken gutter or poor drainage system could have seeped in here for years without anyone noticing. Old houses are prone to this issue. Fortunately, you discovered it early. Sarah crouched down and petted Sam. "You knew, didn't you? You tried to warn me." Sam whimpered softly, licking her hand as if to comfort her. Another unexpected discovery made things clearer. When the inspector removed more of the wall, he found a large crack running along the interior, indicating severe structural damage to the house. "This explains why you've been hearing vibrations at night," he explained. "When the temperature changes, combined with water seepage and weak structures, it can cause small noises that are hard for human ears to detect, but a dog like Sam can pick up." Sarah choked up, looking at Sam with deep gratitude. The dog had not only protected her and Max from external dangers, but also from the hidden threats inside their home. The inspector concluded, "You need to repair the gutter and the wall structure immediately. If left unchecked, it could collapse and pose a danger to your family." Sarah nodded, determined. "I'll do whatever it takes. Thank you for finding this." That night, when everything had quieted down, Sarah sat next to Sam. She gently stroked his soft fur, her heart full of appreciation. "You saved me and Max, Sam. Not just once, but twice. Without you, I don't know what I'd do." Sam looked up at her, his eyes tender as if to say, "You don't need to thank me. It's what I always do for my family." Sarah smiled, tears streaming down her face. "You're the most precious gift I've ever had." Though tomorrow would bring many tasks, tonight, Sarah felt more at peace than ever. Sam lay down next to her, his ears still perked up, ready to protect his family no matter what came next. After many days of repairs and inspections, Sarah's house gradually became safer. The walls had been reinforced, the gutters and drainage systems replaced, and every sign of water damage or termites addressed. Yet, for Sarah, the feeling of unease lingered. On the last night, before moving Max's belongings back into his room, she sat on a chair by the window, with Sam lying at her feet. The dog had now become more relaxed, no longer growling or tense as before. Max was sound asleep in a temporary crib in her room, while Sarah couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. Sarah looked at Sam and softly said, "Sam, I've repaired the house, installed cameras, done everything to protect Max. But I still can't stop thinking, is this truly the safest place for Max and me?" Sam looked back at her, his eyes filled with loyalty and calm. Yet Sarah couldn't shake off her worries. She recalled every event that had transpired. The stranger appearing in the darkness, the crack in the wall that nearly caused the house to collapse, and most of all, Sam's constant vigilance, a reminder that the world outside was fraught with dangers she could never fully anticipate. A big question loomed in Sarah's mind. Should she sell this house and find a new, safer place for Max? Or should she stay here, trusting in the repairs and Sam's loyalty? She knew that any decision would bring its own challenges. Moving might bring her peace of mind, but would a new place truly be better? Or was she just running away from her own fears? Sarah turned to the audience, as if seeking an answer. What would you do if you were me? Stay and trust that everything will be fine, or start anew somewhere else? Let me know what you think, because sometimes advice from an outsider can be more insightful than anything else. Sarah's story is not just about a loyal dog or an old house full of risks. It's also about the challenges that any of us might face. The safety of family. How can we ensure our loved ones are always protected? Trusting instincts and intuition. Sam, with his instincts, had sensed dangers Sarah couldn't see. In life, sometimes we need to trust those small signals to avoid bigger threats. Difficult decisions. To stay or to leave, to confront or to flee. These are never easy choices. This story reminds us that life is always full of challenges, but with trust, determination, and especially love, we can overcome them all. So, what do you think Sarah should do? Stay and continue building her home, or seek a fresh start elsewhere? Share your thoughts.